We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, brought to you by our great friends at Alumni Hall. Make sure to check them out for the best selection of Georgia gear anywhere out there, guys. But today on the show, I'm going to break down which members of Georgia's 2025 transfer class will make the biggest impact on the field for the Dogs this season. But before we get there, if you are a diehard Georgia fan, go ahead, subscribe right now, turn those notifications on, because everything that we do here on this channel, guys, it truly is designed for all you diehards. So subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff, guys. It's a huge help as I continue to try to grow this channel. So thank you in advance for that. But all right, let's get into today's show, and I've got another installment of my Georgia Football 2025 Top 5 series. Today, ranking Georgia's top 5 impact transfers ahead of the start of the 2025 season. At this point, guys, we've done a number of these. We've done breakout players. I think it was the first one we did about a month and a half ago. Sleeper players, impact freshmen. Last week we did X Factors. So make sure to check those out. They're still out there on the channel if you've missed any of those. But today, I'm setting my sights on Georgia's 2025 transfer class. And no, it's not a big transfer class. It never really is for Georgia. You got teams like Purdue, who brought in 54 transfers this season. West Virginia, with Rich Rod coming back to Morgantown, brought in 52. North Carolina with Bill Belichick, they flipped the roster. They brought in 41 guys. Ole Miss, if we want to look at the SEC, has brought in 79 transfers over the course of the last 3 years. And guys, Georgia, the last 3 seasons, has brought in a grand total of 25 players from the transfer portal. Ole Miss is bringing in 30 transfers this year alone. You go back to 2024, Georgia brought in 11. 2023, Georgia only brought in 4. And then this year, Georgia's got 10 guys they brought in from the transfer portal, which was the third fewest in the entire SEC. So obviously, the emphasis for Georgia in terms of building our roster has still been on recruiting the high school ranks and then retaining those players once they get on campus. It hasn't been so much loading up the portal the way it has been for other programs. Every program is built differently, and they have different strategies for building the rosters. And the transfer portal is not Georgia's primary roster building strategy. But saying that, every team does have needs that need to be addressed immediately every offseason. Some more than others, certainly, as evidenced by some of those numbers I read you, like 54 transfers. That's like more than Colorado brought in Deion's first year. That's crazy. But every team has needs they have to meet in the offseason. And Georgia's no different. You know, we need to go out and find some wide receivers after last year, lead the nation in drops, and just having a lack of playmakers in general at the receiver position. With all of our edge players either leaving to go to the NFL, graduation, or transferring out like David Wilson Jr., we had a major need at the edge position, certainly in that spring transfer portal window, and I think running back as well. So receiver, edge, running back were probably the most glaring needs. So the quantity of transfers taken by Georgia ahead of this season might not have been all that much, because it never really is for Georgia. But we are in a situation, even though we didn't take a ton of transfers, we kind of need those transfers that we did take to hit big in 2025. So with that in mind, I have put together my list of 5 players in this 2025 Georgia football transfer class that I believe will hit the biggest for the Dogs this season, make the biggest impact in 2025. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the list, guys. Coming at number 5, and I should say this off the top here. Honestly, when I was putting together this list, I felt like there were 4 players that I feel very confident in making an impact for Georgia in 2025 from this transfer class. There were 4 guys I felt really good about, all right? So obviously those are going to be numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this list. The 5th guy is a little bit of a stretch because I looked at the 10 guys. I'm like, okay, I don't know if there's 5 guys I feel really good about making an impact. 4 guys, yeah, 5, that's a little bit of a stretch, but this is a top 5 series that I've been running for the past month and a half. It's not a top 4 series. So in keeping with the theme, I'm going to give you guys a 5th player. And that 5th player coming at number 5 is DB Zion Branch. And look, guys, we brought in 3 guys from the portal in this year's class to fit in that defensive backfield, primarily at safety and star. We were pretty loaded at cornerback, but we needed some depth at star and at that safety position. So you bring in Zion Branch, you bring in Jaden Harris from Miami, who started for them last year. Wasn't great for Miami, but he was making that transition to safety. Hadn't played a lot there in his career, but has some experience. And you bring in Adrian Maddox from UAB. Those are 3 guys. And honestly, when we went out and got those guys, I was kind of like, all right, they're all essentially the same-ish type players, similar measurable size, all that kind of stuff. And we'll just see what happens when they get here to campus. And, having a chance to see all those guys at practice a little bit this spring, watch them at G-Day, I actually thought they all looked good. I think they all could potentially help us this year. But at the same time, I don't think any of those 3 are like obvious answers for George. Like, okay, yeah, he's absolutely going to be the guy at safety, or he's absolutely going to be the guy at star. I think right now going into the season, they're probably lined to be more depth pieces, and maybe 1 or 2 of them can work their way into some sort of rotational role. Maybe it's safety, because last year we had like a 3-man rotation at safety. So if one of those guys can step up and say, all right, I can help you win, I deserve some stats to be in that rotation, then there's a possibility there. And I think that guy, if it's going to be one of those 3, I'm going to go with Zion Branch. Now, again, this 5th player, it's a bit of a wild card. It could be Adrian Max. I thought Max did some good things at star at G-Day, but when I look at Zion Branch, the reason I'm going with him is, first off, when you look at the guy on the field, right, whether it's at practice, whether it's at G-Day, he just looks the part physically a little bit more than Maddox or Harris, in my opinion. It's not that those guys look small or incapable of doing the job. They have good size. They're all around 6 foot, 6'1", 200-ish pounds, run well. But Branch just looks more put together out there on the field. When you see him out there, like at G-Day, for those of you who are able to go and watch it, I hate that it wasn't on TV for everyone to be able to watch. But Branch just he looks the part, almost like an old school, head-hunting safety that George used to have in years past. Greg Blue, Thomas Davis, those kind of guys, although you're not really allowed to be that kind of guy anymore. But at 6'2", 210, he absolutely looks the part. And here's the thing about Branch. I know he basically hasn't done anything, more or less, in his career to this point. But that's not due to a lack of ability, a lack of talent. It's due to injuries. That derailed the early part of his career at USC. The guy just could not stay healthy. Now, I know when I say that, some of you are going to be like, well, if he's got the injury bug, how can we count on this year? Well, honestly, we're not in a position to have to count him. I think we have some other guys that can help, but I don't want to put that on him and say, this guy just can't stay healthy. Maybe that's the case. I never know how to feel about that. The guys are just the idea of being quote-unquote injury prone. I think injuries are kind of just fluke, and sometimes they happen. So I'm hopeful that he can stay healthy this year. And if he can stay healthy this year, I do believe he is more likely than the other 2. Out of those 3 transfer DBs that we brought in, I think he's the most likely right now to work his way into some sort of rotational role early in the year at safety. And if things go well, maybe he can take over that job as a starter at some point. But right now, Ja'Cory Thomas is a guy I would still project to start alongside KJ Bolden at safety. Ja'Cory's been in the system for a long, long time. He's never really, he started a couple of games in his career. I think a couple games last year. Started in week 1. Didn't actually end up playing that much, but ended up starting that game. Janelle Aguero had an injury, missed that game against Clemson. So he's got some experience, but he's never played a prominent role in Georgia's defense. But he has been in the system for a long, long time. And if you play in the secondary, especially at safety, trust is maybe the most key factor of all the factors that coaches are looking for, that Kirby's looking for back there with the guys that he entrusts back there. Because technically the idea of a safety is you are the safety. You are the line of last defense, right? So you cannot have a bust back there. You got to have guys that you can trust. And Ja'Cory Thomas being in the system for a number of years, going to year 4 in this system, he's certainly got a massive edge over all 3 of those transfer guys that we brought in that regard. Physically, Ja'Cory's a talented player, not the most talented guy we've had back there, but if you look at a guy like Chris Smith, for example, I think he's maybe a similar comp for Ja'Cory. Chris Smith waited a number of years to get his chance, was just biding his time, put his head down, went to work, got better, learned the system, earned the coach's trust, and then when his name got called, the rest is history. The guy never looked back, right? So maybe that happens for Ja'Cory Thomas this year. Certainly could. I'm not gonna discount that possibility. But I do think that Zion Branch, and honestly probably Harris and Maddox, all 3 of those guys, honestly, I believe, probably have more physical ability than Ja'Cory Thomas does. So it's that age-old question. It's knowledge of the system versus talent. And Like, something's got to give, right? So right now, I would again project Ja'Cory Thomas to open the season. He did a lot of good things in spring. Didn't do anything to lose that job. He obviously had a head start on that starting job entering the spring, and I expect him to start fall camp in about a week now, being that guy. And odds are he'll probably hold on to that job going into the season. But I do think that there's a chance that somebody could work into that rotational role. And if I had to predict right now, I think it's Zion Branch. Again, I think he looks apart physically. I think he's more of an athlete out there. And I think that he's got a shot to work himself into a role there. So we'll see. Again, like I'm splitting hairs here, guys, between those three guys. I think there's 4 players in this transfer class I really feel confident in. This one's a bit of a stretch, but I had to give you 5, so I'm going to go with Zion Branch. And also, I'll just throw this out there. People that I trust around the program have also, one of the reasons I went with Zion Branch over the other two is I've heard really good things about what he's doing internally within our program, like from a leadership standpoint. Like, I've heard really good things about both the Branches, like the Branch brothers. They've come in, they've adapted to our culture, they fit our culture really well. They've been leaders in our skull sessions, all that kind of stuff, like really good locker room guys. And come over from USC, they went to Bishop Gorman, the big time high school football program in Nevada. So you don't know exactly how that's going to mesh here in Georgia, but apparently it's been a great fit. And so with that element, when I start to hear some of those things, that would lead me to put Branch even just a notch further ahead of both Harris and Maggs. So I'm going to go with Zion Branch there at number 5, tentatively. We'll call that tentatively. Now let's get into the 4 that I feel really confident are going to help Georgia win games, are going to play a lot for Georgia, are going to be an instant impact guys for the Dogs in 2025. And I'm going to give you number 3 and 4 here together because, to be honest with you guys, I had a really hard time deciding between them. Who should be 3, who should be 4. I felt pretty good about number 1 and 2. We'll get them in a minute here. 3 and 4, I think they're interchangeable. You could have 1 and 3, you could have 1 and 4 in whatever order you want. But coming in at number 3, I've got wide receiver Zachariah Branch, transfer coming over from USC. Coming in at number 4, I've got Texas A&M transfer wide receiver Noah Thomas. All right. Now, if you think Thomas should be at 3 and Branch at 4, you got no arguments for me because I thought that myself for a bit. I went back and forth on this. These lists, like, believe it or not, these lists sometimes they drive me crazy. They're hard to put together, sometimes hard to differentiate between player A and player B. But let me explain why I went Branch at 3 over Noah Thomas. So I'm going to start by saying this. I actually think that Thomas, at this stage in his career, we'll see how they develop this season, but from what I've seen from Thomas at A&M and Branch at USC, I believe Thomas is a better pure receiver coming into this season. And I think that probably be the case this season. Like, I mean, could Branch catch up? Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, he's a guy that came into college more or less as an athlete and tried to, learn how to play receiver at USC. I think he's still a work in progress there. So I think Thomas is much more of a polished receiver. Although they play different positions, obviously Branch is a pure slot guy. Thomas is a guy that's probably an X, but I think can play Z as well at 6'6", 200 pounds. I think we talked about this before with receivers. I think that Colby Young and Noah Thomas are kind of interchangeable, X and Z. They'll probably move around a lot and try to create mashups. But I do think Thomas is the more polished receiver, the more pure receiver right now at this level. Last year, he had 39 catches for 574 yards, 8 touchdowns, about 15 yards per catch for A&M. And I know that Thomas's numbers to this point in his career are relatively modest by receiver standards. Like, good numbers, solid numbers, but not like spectacular blow you away type numbers. But as I've said many times with Thomas, I'll go back to it again here. My read on that, going back and watching the tape and just watching college football religiously as much as I do year in, year out, Noah Thomas has always been a really talented guy at receivers, always shown big-time ability. But there's been a problem at A&M. They've had highly inconsistent quarterback play. Guys in and out of the lineup, and it just hasn't really meshed. And that's one of the reasons that A&M hasn't really blown the lid off their program in recent years. And one of the reasons that Jimbo Fisher is no longer the head coach there. The culture there and things got away from him, and his offense kind of antiquated. But the quarterback situation hasn't been ideal. They brought in some talented guys, some 5-star guys. Like Connor Wigman was a 5-star guy. But injuries and then inconsistencies when he got back in the lineup, and the same thing with Marcel Reed. So those guys last year were in and out of the lineup, and it just wasn't a great situation. Hasn't been a great situation at quarterback for a while at Texas A&M, and that has impacted their receivers like Noah Thomas. So I think Thomas, I think he has 1,000-yard receiver potential. I'm not saying he'll go for 1,000 this year, but Like, he's got that type of potential. I'm going to stick with saying I believe that Colby Young is going to be the guy for Georgia receiver and will lead the team in receiving, but it also wouldn't surprise me at all if we look up at the end of the season, it's actually Noah Thomas that led the team. I'm going to project Colby Young right now because he's got a year in the system and got a little bit more of continuity there, but Thomas is a talented guy, man, and he's got the ability to go up and get that 50-50 ball. He's a red zone threat, so I really like Noah Thomas, and I do think he's probably a more pure receiver at this stage than Zachariah Branch. But here is why I have Zachariah Branch ahead of Noah Thomas. It's the special teams aspect of this, guys. Like, that's what it comes down to. Because the reality is, like, I think that Thomas will play more at receiver than Branch will. Guys, there's a very realistic possibility, as excited as many people are, and I include myself in that, as excited as people are about what Zachariah Branch can do for the Georgia offense and injecting a much-needed sense of explosiveness and electricity into our offense that we just were missing by and large last year, I would say right now probably won't start. If G-Day is any indication, if the spring is any indication, he won't open the season as a starter at the slot. Because it was Dylan Bell that opened G-Day with the number one offense as the starter at the slot receiver position. And then you got Colby Young and you've got Noah Thomas on the outside. Now, Branch worked in liberally with the number one offense at slot, but he is going to rotate there. He's going to split reps with Dylan Bell. Now, Dylan Bell is going to be used in a variety of ways this year. He can play inside, he can play outside, played outside most of his career until this year. And I also think he's going to be used at running back. I saw it at practice, guys, like straight up. Like, he's going to be used at running back. How much? That remains to be seen. Exactly what capacity. We'll see, but he was getting a fair number of reps during the spring at running back. So we're going to use that guy in a variety of ways, but they're going to split reps. Zachariah Branch, as talented as he is not going to be our full-time slot receiver the way that Dominic Lovett was the past couple years. Like, Dom Lovett was the guy at slot for Georgia. And then there's also this, guys. When we go to 12 personnel, who comes off the field? The slot receiver, right? When we put two tight ends on the field, which Georgia does a lot, we didn't maybe do it as much last year, but there's been years we're like upwards of like 50-ish% with 12 personnel. When we're in 12 personnel, the slot receiver is not on the field. Like, very rarely would they be on the field in that situation, if ever at all. And if you look at last year, so Dominic Lovett, who again was the guy for us at slot, he didn't even split reps at slot. Anthony Evans came in and got a few spot snaps here and there, but Lovett was like the guy at slot. And he had 450 snaps total offensively last year. Arian Smith, we're just going to offensive snaps, not doing special team snaps. Arian Smith had roughly like 700-ish snaps last year. Why? Because he played on the outside. When we were in 12 personnel, he was still on the field. Dylan Bell missed 2 full games last year and parts of other games, and he still had 600 offensive snaps, about 150 more than Dominic Lovett. So from that standpoint, for those of you who would argue, I would have Noah Thomas ahead of Zachariah Branch, that would be a really strong points for your argument. And I get that, man, because I do think that Thomas is going to play more because he plays outside. He won't be coming off the field when we go to 12 personnel. Like, we rotate a receiver at all positions, but he's going to play more snaps than Zachariah Branch at receiver. But again, where I give Branch the edge is special teams. And for some of you, that might not matter that much, guys. But, dude, special teams, like, it is the forgotten part of the game. You can win and lose football games based on your special teams. Guys, it's hurt us and it's helped us. Go back to the 2023, I guess it was the 2022 Peach Bowl, right? College football playoff semifinal, Ohio State. Don't you think Ohio State wishes they had a little bit of a better kicker who would have made that field goal? And he was good for them most of the year, but missed that one when it counted, right? Special teams matters. And Branch is a dynamic returner, and he's not limited to just punt returns. This is a guy that was a punt returner and a kick returner at USC, has a punt return for a touchdown in his career, I think a 95-yard punt return for a touchdown, has a kick return for a touchdown in his career. In 2023, his freshman year, he averaged 20 yards per punt return, was first-team All-Pac-12 as a return man, was first-team All-American by USA Today. So this guy is not just kind of like a good return guy. He is a dynamic return man, one of the best in the entire country, right? That's why he was preseason All-SEC by the media at SEC Media Days a couple weeks ago. That is what puts Branch over the top for me. So if we're basing this just on pure receiving ability, like if it's just isolated to playing receiver, absolutely I would have Noah Thomas ahead of Zachariah Branch. He's going to play more. I think he's more of a polished receiver. I think he'll make more of an impact as a receiver. Not that Branch won't make an impact as a receiver. He will. But when you add in Branch's ability to inject some explosiveness into our offense from the slot and also inject some explosiveness in the return game, that is cause enough for me to put Zachariah Branch at 3 ever so slightly ahead of Noah Thomas at 4. But again, we're splitting hairs there. I think they're relatively interchangeable. If you want to flip around, that's fine with me. No argument. But I got Zachariah Branch at 3 and Noah Thomas at 4. But I'm excited about both those guys. I am. And they're both going to help Georgia in big ways this year. All right. Let's get to the two that were pretty obvious for me. Coming in at number 2, I've got Illinois running back transfer Josh McCray. Now, I don't expect Josh McCray to be Georgia's leading rusher this year, the way that he was for Illinois a year ago. That's going to be Nate Frazier, barring injury. I told you guys about this time last year, maybe almost, let's just say almost a year ago. So I had a chance to go to a fall camp practice last year, and I came back here, did a video recapping everything I saw for you guys, and one of the first things out of my mouth was, oh my God, Nate Frazier. Like, this dude is the real deal. The next great Georgia running back. And I'm not backing off that, guys. I saw some really promising things from last year. There are some things I'd like to see him improve on. Obviously, ball security, number 1. Got a hold of the football. That's kind of a prerequisite, right? I would also like to see, I love his physicality. I love how he just, puts his head down and runs through, tacklers and all that kind of stuff. But I do think he can improve his patience. Sometimes I do feel like he just kind of put his head down and wasn't even looking and just running the back of his offensive lineman, allowing blocks to set up and then running off them, pressing the line, and then maybe a jump cut outside, the vision there. When you get the football, just having a little bit of patience. Those are things I like to see him work on. But the guy is explosive. He's dynamic, runs with power, got home run speed. We saw all of that last year at times, right? So I'm very confident in Nate Frazier that he's going to be the guy for Georgia, maybe one of the better running backs in the SEC. But I also think Josh McCray is going to be a big piece of the puzzle for the Georgia run game in 2025. A run game that very much needs to get back on track in 2025, which is why you go out and get a guy like Josh McCray. You need not only depth there, we need some depth, but we also need a guy that can come in and help us right away. And that's what Josh McCray is. He's a veteran, guys. He led Illinois in rushing last year. So I don't think he's going to be Georgia's leading rusher, number 1 back, but I think he's very likely at this point to be Georgia's number 2 running back and be a really strong complement to Nate Frazier. In fact, I think he's a perfect complement to Frazier, about 6'1"-ish, about 235, 240-ish pounds. He's exactly what we need to complement a guy like Nate Frazier, who does have that home run ability and is powerful in his own right. But when you look at Josh McCray's skill set, this is a guy that obviously with his size has the ability to run with authority and run with power, put his shoulder down and run through you. Of course he can do that. He also runs with really, really good pad level, will get behind his pads, has incredible contact balance. And here's the thing, he's definitely not as explosive as Nate Frazier. Certainly not. Would never try to argue that he is. Not the case. Good speed, not Nate Frazier type speed. But one thing he does have is ridiculously good feet. His feet are awesome, guys. And I love that in running backs. That's one of the things I like about Kendall Milton. Kendall Milton, you guys saw, was never a burner for Georgia. He was not a blazer by any stretch of the imagination. Broke off some big runs for Georgia, but was not your quintessential home run threat, right? That's not what Kendall Milton was. What did Kendall Milton have? He had great feet, man. When he was healthy, awesome feet. So that matters because when you see the hole, it enables you to get to the hole. You can press line of scrimmage. You can jump cut outside. He has a nice little jump cut. You can make people miss the hole, make people miss in space, and he does that. For a guy that is as big as McCray is, the nimbleness, the agility he brings to the table with those feet is really, really impressive. And that's going to be a big help for Georgia as well. So I love him, man. I think he's going to be a big piece of the running game here. And I know, those of you might be looking at his numbers right now, pulling them up, hey, wait, how much did this guy run for last year? What has he done in his career? And look, I know when you look at his numbers, they're relatively modest for pretty much all of his career. Yeah, he led Illinois in rushing last year, but it was under 700 yards rushing. It was kind of split some time back there. But it's kind of like with Zion Branch. His lack of numbers isn't really due to a lack of ability, a lack of talent. It's due to injuries. Guys, 2022 and 2023, right? Over the course of those 2 seasons, he missed 17 combined games 17 games over the course of 2 seasons. One of them was a neck injury. Didn't have to have surgery on it, but his neck was messed up and missed like, I think 9 games. I think that was in 2023. So that has set him back, and that kept him from being as productive throughout the totality of his career at Illinois as he should have been based on the talent that the guy has. When he's healthy, make no mistake about it, guys, Josh McCray can straight up play. Like, he is a dude at running back. And the reason I have him at number 2 ahead of Thomas and Branch, ahead of the receivers, is because I just think he's going to get more opportunities. Because if he is indeed going to end up being Georgia's number 2 back, which I believe right now he probably will be if you look at what we have behind him, you've got, of course, you got Bowens, you got Chauncey Bowens coming in as a redshirt freshman. I don't think he's going to be the number 2 back ahead of a guy that led Illinois in rushing last year. I love Bo Walker. Did awesome things in the spring. And I'm telling you guys, saw him at practice, saw him at G-Day. The buzz around him is real. He's going to play for Georgia. He's going to help Georgia this year. But I don't think he's going to be the number 2 back, at least not to open the season, barring injury. Rod Robinson coming back, looks healthy right now, but he's coming off a couple of tough injuries, guys. Like, what version of Rod Robinson do we get? I don't know. There's a chance Rod can be the number 2 back. There's a chance. I'm not going to discount that. But right now, based off what we know, I would project Josh McCray to be that guy. We'll see. That's what fall camp's for. But right now, I would project Josh McCray. Now, I'll say this too. People around the program that I trust have been raving about his work ethic since he's gotten to Athens. He's dropped some weight, gotten in good shape, gotten his body where they want it to be. They wanted him to drop a few pounds when he got here. It looks like he's done that. So he's ready for fall camp to start here later this week, which is crazy, man, later this week. So I think he's getting more opportunities than receivers. If you look at our number 2 back, the past, well, I'm going to say last year we were just banged up with injuries. But if you go back to 2023, Kendall Milton was our number 2 guy behind Daijun Edwards, right? He was second in carries. He had 121 carries as our second leading rusher in 2023. Daijun Edwards in 2022 had 140 carries as our second leading rusher that season. So I would say right now, I think that Josh McCray will have somewhere between like 115 to 150 carries this year. That would be my projection, somewhere in that range. And that would just simply give him more opportunities to impact games than the wide receivers are going to have, right? Because, like, what is Noah Thomas going to have? I mean, Noah Thomas, like, he's not going to have more than 50 receptions. He's just not, right? Zachariah Branch, I'd be shocked if he had more than 50 catches. That'd be great if he did. It'd be awesome. But with him splitting reps and playing slot and not being in there when we had 12 personnel, he's not going to have as many opportunities. Yes, he'll have opportunities to return, right? That's why if I was going to consider having one of those receivers ahead of McCray, it would have been, obviously, Branch, because he does have the return opportunities there as well. But I think McCray's just going to have more opportunities when he's healthy. He is going to be a guy that can help Georgia win. And also, part of this is I think that Georgia's identity is going to go back being closer to what it has been traditionally under Kirby Smart, most of Kirby Smart's tenure, right? And what I mean by that is we want to establish a downhill, physical ground game and work play action and vertical shots down the field off of that. I think Gunnar Stockton's skill set fits that with his ability to run the football, open up the ground game, his ability to hit the vertical shot down the field with a lot more accuracy than Carson Beck has the past couple years. I think our tight end room is really strong this year. So I think you're going to go back to seeing us use that traditional Georgia offensive formula. Some of you might not like that. I'm not saying that we're going to abandon the pass game, but if you look at last year, guys, obviously, you know, we could not run the football to save our lives. 15th out of 16 teams. Did a video on that last week. You can go back check that out if you missed it. But we threw the ball on 54% of our offensive snaps a year ago. That ain't Georgia football, y'all. That's just not. Now, like, if we're leading the nation in passing and it's effective, great, awesome. Wasn't always the case last year, right? That's why we got bogged down offensively too many times last year, because we leaned too much on the pass because we couldn't run the football. Go back to 2023 and 2022, both those years, we ran the ball 53% of the time, right? That's like the inverse of what it was in 2024. In 2021, the first national title season, different year, right? But we ran the ball 58% of our offensive snaps in 2021. I don't know if we'll go quite back to that type of split this season that we saw in 2021, but here's what I will say. I think we'll be closer to those splits, like 58% run than 54% pass last year. I would say probably more like 54, 55% run this year. With what we have offensively, the skill set of our quarterback, have a guy like Nate Frazier, I'm really high on. You bring a guy like Josh McCray, who's been productive, at least last year, being a leading rusher for Illinois, have a strong tight end room, and Gunner's ability to operate off play action, get him moving outside the pocket. I think that you'll see more of that from Georgia. And if that is what Georgia does offensively this year, kind of that return to that traditional ground and pound, play action, vertical shot identity, then that's going to give Josh McCray even more opportunities. And his ability to just pound defenses with his size is going to be a big part of that. It might even give him an opportunity to give him more carries than he otherwise would. So yeah, I got Josh McCray, running back from Illinois, coming in at number 2. And then finally, at number 1, we're going to book in defensive players here. The number 1 impact transfer for Georgia in 2025, for me, I feel very strongly about this. I didn't feel strongly about number 5, right? I feel very strongly about number 1, is Army transfer edge rusher Elo Madozie. And I want to say this real quick here. I've been saying this guy's name wrong since April, since we first got his commitment. I've been calling him Elo Madozie. Apparently that's wrong. I've been told that's wrong. Someone correct me on that. So my bad. Elo Madozie. It is what it is, man. You know, I'm getting old. Can't read these days. But let's talk about Madozie here. All right. Love this guy. I've watched more Army tape this offseason than I have the rest of my life combined. Yeah, I watch Army usually maybe they play Notre Dame, maybe they play Navy at the end of the year. I went back and watched every Army game that I could find last year. I wasn't watching the offense so much. I'm watching Madozie. I want to see what this guy brings to the table because we need him. We need him in a big way. It's not only that I think he's got the ability, but we need this guy to hit in a big way at edge because that was probably our biggest need after all the bodies that we lost last year at that position. And at this point, guys, after spending a large portion of the offseason going back and just pouring through the Army tape, I am convinced that Elo Madozie is going to be an absolute terror rushing the passer off the edge this season. I think he is explosive off the ball. I don't think he is. He's just straight up. Just watch the tape, guys. He is explosive off the ball, incredible first step quickness, got super impressive bend off the edge, that flexibility to get low and dip under the offensive tackles, has an impressive bag of moves and counter moves. He's got everything that you need to rush the passer at a high level in the SEC. Now, I know that's a question, and that's a question I've had. I've voiced that, not concern, I've voiced that question a couple of times here throughout the offseason. I love the pass rushing ability of Madozie, but you are moving up a level, going from the American Conference to big boy football in the SEC. Can you hold up physically on a down-by-down basis at the edge? That's been my question. I have zero questions about his ability to rush the passer. I am convinced that he can rush the passer as effectively as about anybody in the league this year, guys. I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say that he could lead the league in sacks this year. We'll save that for my bold predictions episode we're going to do here in a couple of weeks. So put that in your back pocket. But, I mean, think about this, guys. He's going to have a lot of opportunities because we lost a ton of guys. We lost our top 7 sack guys from a year ago. Our top 7 players that led us in sacks last year, all gone. All gone. Massive need at that position. They weren't all edge rushers, all right? Some of them were 5 techs. Some of them were jack linebackers. Some of them were like Jalen Walker, who's just plays all over the place, right? Smile Munden, inside linebacker. But our top 7 guys in sacks last year are gone. They're gone. So this guy is going to play a ton for Georgia. Yeah, Quintavious Johnson's going to play some at the edge. Yeah, of course he is. And we might move Gabe Harris there situationally at times, but I'm convinced Madozie is going to be that guy. All right, he's another guy I've heard has actually added some good weight. That was my concern. Are you big enough? You're strong enough to be able to hold up, setting the edge on standard downs, on first and second down, being able to hold up effectively against the run? That was my question. He played it well at Army in the AAC, but the AAC ain't the SEC. So that was my question. But I'm hearing good returns there. I still want to see that myself because he wasn't here for the spring. He's a spring transfer portal window guy. So I haven't seen him here in Athens. No G-Day, no spring practices. Hopefully, fingers crossed, a good chance to go see him this fall. I don't know. We'll see. Opportunities come sometimes. Opportunities don't come sometimes. We'll see what happens there. But his ability to rush the passer off the edge is going to be critical for Georgia. He is going to be that guy. He is going to be the guy for Georgia off the edge. And I think he's going to deliver in a big way. Why? Because I've seen it. I've seen him rush the passer at an extremely high level. I know 7 sacks last year. Doesn't scream crazy stuff, but in our system, I think this guy is going to be used very effectively. I love Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart, the way they scheme things up. He's also a guy that has, like, with his athleticism, he has some versatility. Yeah, obviously you can line him up on the edge. That's ostensibly going to be where he plays as a jack linebacker, but you get a third down package. You can move him around. Can he stand up off the ball situationally on third downs and be a guy who's spying the quarterback? Yeah, he could, right? Could be a guy you slide down inside, get a matchup on a guard on third downs, obvious passing situations. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? When we do that, because we do that with guys like him, he's going to win the vast majority of those battles, guys. Even if he's not getting the quarterback on the ground, which he'll do a lot of this year, he's going to consistently affect the quarterback, and you've got to have that, guys. You simply have to have it. So the opportunity is going to be there. The talent is there. Skill set's there. This guy is going to be a big-time impact player, not just for Georgia. He's going to be one of the big-time impact players in the entire SEC, guys. I truly do believe that. So he was an obvious one for me. I got Elo Mendoza coming in at number 1 as Georgia's most impactful transfer player in the 2025 season. But all right, guys, there you go. That's my list. Got Elo Mendoza at 1. You got Josh McCray, running back, at 2. Zachariah Branch, receiver, at 3. Noah Thomas, receiver, at 4. Those guys are interchangeable. And then the little bit of a stretch there, we got DB Zion Branch coming in at number 5. So thank you guys so much for checking out today's episode. I'm sure you probably agree with some of these, probably disagree with other ones. So let me know what I get right, what I get wrong. Hit me up in the comments, guys. I love to hear from you. I'll try to respond to as many of those as I possibly can. And again, if you are a diehard Georgia fan, hopefully you see this is what we do here on this channel. We talk hardcore Georgia football. I'm a diehard Georgia fan. I do this for you diehard Georgia fans. So go ahead and subscribe right now. Turn those notifications on. If you like this video, please go ahead and like it. So thank you guys again. Very much appreciated. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs.
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.